Thanks everyone for hanging in there. We know it's a long day, especially being online, but we appreciate you paying attention. Orchid Systems is one of those ISVs that's extremely well known for its support. You work with a great business partner in Equation Technologies because they support you so well. But they also work with a number of third-party solutions, such as the ones you've seen today, who are also well supported, which is why Equation recommends them to you. So we hope that there's something as part of today's presentation that you found extremely useful and beneficial to your organization. A little bit about Orchid Systems, if you're not familiar with them. We actually have over 7,000 Sage 300 sites around the world in 80 countries, so a global solution, just like Sage 300. Been in business now 30 years and work with a number of different business partners around the world. They're headquartered out of Sydney, Australia, and we act as their North American distributors for Canada, the US, Mexico, and the Caribbean. They've won a number of different industry awards. They have a number of different integrated modules, which we'll touch on very briefly. And the good news for us is that when we sell an application, customers generally come back and buy at least one more. So there's an average of 2.5 modules per customer site, which I think speaks well to the support that Orchid offers. And you can see here that 88% of our support cases are addressed within 24 hours. So referencing that support and how important it is to make sure that the applications you embed as part of your Sage 300 environment are well supported, in addition to having great functionality, makes it easy to work with. Now, when we look at the portfolio of products, Orchid has broken them out by business theme. The first one being collaboration. We're going to touch a little bit on notes and document management link as part of the presentation today. And also this area, what we call tailoring, automation, and integration, using a tool called Extender, which extends the functionality of Sage 300 by offering a number of different ways for you to customize screens, data that you can store in Sage 300, email alerts, audit logging, as well as other functionality that makes Sage 300 a much more robust business management solution. And it also integrates with Notes, Document Management Link, and another tool we'll talk briefly about called Process Scheduler. It also includes Remote Action Service and Workflow Anywhere, so that you can acknowledge in a workflow process transactions or master file updates that need to be approved. There's also this area of streamlining financial processes. Orchid is probably best known for their EFT processing solution, and we know a number of Equation clients are using that application. There's also the inter-entity transactions and inter-entity trade, which allow you to automatically create your due to, due from intercompany loan account transaction balances so that you don't have to manually reconcile those balances every month, and that saves a lot of time in your month-end procedure. Inter-entity trade is a solution that allows you to buy and sell between companies so that you can do an OE order in one company and it automatically creates the purchase order on the other side. OE shipments would create PO receipts, OE invoices, PO invoices, but also between AR and AP. Companies that charge management fees between related parties will set up an AR invoice in one company and it automatically creates the AP invoice on the other side. And then when you pay that AP invoice, we can automatically create the AR receipt to clear that receivable. So very powerful tools to automate transaction processes. And then we've got budgeting, reporting, and business intelligence with things like Report Runner that allows you to create a custom menu of Crystal reports or FR financial statements and create report groups to allocate different types of reports to different users using different formats for the data, so that you don't have to go in and enter the parameters for how you run those reports manually every time. You enter it once and hard code those parameters so that you can just run the reports, and either do that as a manual process when you want to run the report, or you schedule it through Process Scheduler so you can run all your reports unattended as of a certain date and time. And then we've got some inventory management and operations solutions for return material authorizations, which is a solution that's particularly relevant today with online selling, where people are buying goods sight unseen, and they need to return things that they don't want. This gives you a way to manage that process efficiently. And bin tracking for the ability to store items within a bin within an IC location. So that might be a specific aisle, row, rack, or shelf within your warehouse. Now, as I mentioned, we're going to be focusing on the collaboration tools and the tailoring and automation tools, starting off with notes and document management link. Now, some of these slides, granted, are quite busy, so please don't worry about that. You can get copies of the slides. I'm just going to hit the highlights very briefly to give you a flavor of what's possible with the Orchid solutions that we're going to talk about today. With notes and document management link, it gives you informative and intuitive ways to easily integrate information, whether they be notes or documents, to any field on any screen within Sage 300. And that includes the transaction detail grid lines on transaction entry screens. And this, we believe, aids in collaboration because you're sharing information through the notes or sharing documents through document management link to help with on-the-job training for new employees, or the ability to support transaction details with the actual documents in hand. You can also configure who can see the notes and whether they can add, view, edit, or delete those notes. And likewise, you can include hyperlinks to web pages. You can also drag and drop emails into these windows so that you've got full information on one screen within Sage 300. And you'll see how when we integrate Extender with notes, they become conditional notes. So they don't display all the time, but only when a certain condition is met. Or on-the-fly notes that automatically update year-to-date sales information for customers if you're on the OE entry screen. And other things that you can do to incorporate more drill down capability within Sage 300, or external cloud integration where you're linking to freight rate tables, for instance, and updating that information in Sage 300. So here's what Notes looks like within Sage 300. These are all SDK or software development kit based solutions. And the panel on the right-hand side is showing you how the notes would appear as either rich text or hyperlinks, or even images where you can take pictures of an item that would show up when you click on that item on a detail grid line, as you see here in the order entry screen. So lots of different kinds of content can be included within the notes feature. When we look at document management link, very similarly, it's a panel on the right-hand side of the Sage 300 screen that allows you to control how and where links to documents are displayed. And it's key to understand why we call it document management link. We are not storing documents within the Sage 300 database. We're simply providing a link to the document from the screen field within Sage 300. So what that means is that you can store the document once and it will be visible wherever you link it within Sage 300. So you store it once and link it to multiple fields within Sage 300. So it makes it easier in terms of storing and retrieving documents. And where are those documents stored? Typically, customers will store them in a network share folder on their network, or you can link it to Google Docs or OneDrive or Dropbox, whatever repository you choose to use. You can store those documents and link them. Likewise, Microsoft SharePoint is another repository that you can use. And then, of course, with SharePoint, you can take advantage of their workflow capabilities that are available. But it gives you the ability to link, as we've mentioned, to any Sage 300 screen, but also any third-party product, such as Norming Resource Manager and all of the other Orchid modules that are written in the SDK because they follow the same template business logic. Now, when we store and share, we've talked about the fact that we can use SharePoint, Dropbox, OneDrive, or Google Docs. All of those are ways that you can store documents. And the way they get named is when they get dragged into the folder within Sage 300, it will rename to match the description that's in the field within Sage 300. So for example, if I scan an invoice and I drag it into the document management window, it will rename that document to match the invoice number that's in Sage 300. So you always have a direct one-to-one reference between the document and the field that it's linked to within Sage 300. So here again, you've got the panel on the right-hand side that shows you the fields, vendor number, document number, that we're setting up the document reference to. So I could show all documents in one window for that vendor, but then at the top, I see the individual invoice linked to that vendor because that's the invoice we're looking at in this particular screen, the AP invoice entry screen. And then other documents that relate to that vendor, such as contract information or other relevant information about that vendor, can be stored. And all of that is visible in the same panel when you access information on the screen of Sage 300. Next up is the extender product, which is a very cost-effective way to both configure as well as customize and extend Sage 300. And it gives you the ability, using Python scripts, to not only automate processes, but create additional business logic, whether that be field level security or some other business logic that helps you combine processes in one step. So let's talk a little bit more about that. With Sage 300, you've got your traditional accounting transaction processes. And what often happens is that people find that they have to click 2, 3, maybe 4 times to enter an order, to print and post the order, to email the order confirmation to the client, and then store that document, let's say, in Document Management Link. So 4 clicks to accomplish the order posting, order confirmation email, and then storing the document. With Extender, we would automate the entire process by putting a button on the OE screen that says process order, and it would post the order, print to PDF the order confirmation, email that confirmation to your customer, and then store the document in Document Management Link against that field in the OE screen. That's the type of automation that we're talking about that Extender facilitates within Sage 300. And this allows us to build these custom solutions without writing any code. We're simply taking advantage of the fact that Extender understands Sage 300 because it's built as another module, but it gives you the ability to determine what kind of processes you want to automate, or whether you want to customize screens, whether you want to add audit logging to see what has changed within Sage 300, when it changed and who changed it, or to embed workflow approvals within Sage 300. And as we mentioned, we use Python scripting, but also validations such as field level security, adding buttons to screens, or even creating whole brand new screens and linking those to tables where you can create your own custom tables with your own custom data. So people in the food service business that are managing restaurants, if they want to track revenue by square foot, they just add a table to store square footage information about the restaurant, link that to their revenue table, and then be able to view that information on a screen quickly and easily. And then you can also write your own external applications and integrate those into Sage 300 as well. So again, it's a fairly busy screen, but this is how we can embed things like audit logging and alerting. So when something happens in Sage 300, it automatically sends an email to notify the controller that so-and-so has updated a customer credit limit, or that something has been shipped and we're going to need to follow up with the customer to ensure that they have properly received the right goods that they purchased. And this will work for both the Windows Classic desktop as well as the web screens within Sage 300, because it's working at what we call the view level or the business logic level, which sits underneath the user interface level of Sage 300. So you can incorporate these new tools on both web screens and Windows screens and create custom inquiry screens to view information that's in a relevant context. Now, screen customizations, as we've talked about, a lot of people want to add an extra tab, which is what you see here. The shipping details is an extra tab on the order entry screen. And then when we click on the tab, it opens up a custom screen that has been designed using Extender, holding just the data that you want to see for those shipping details. As we talked about, you can add buttons in addition to fields or tabs. So sometimes it's a button on the screen itself that generates a transaction or opens up another view to data, or it actually invokes a process. You can also modify the way the finders work, or you can hide fields so that people can't see something you don't want them to see. And we extend the transaction grid. For those of you that use optional fields, you know that in order to access the optional fields, you have to open up the grid and it opens a separate window with the optional field values. So a number of Sage 300 customers have asked us to take the optional fields and make them another column within the detailed transaction entry grid, which is what you're seeing here. You're seeing projects and entity as additional columns, so that users don't have to open up another window to see the optional field value. It just appears as another column of data within the AP invoice entry screen in this example. And as we talked about, creating your own views, where you create your own database table and then link that database table to your own customized screen within Sage 300. So you can literally create any type of application interface you like within Sage 300. But here's the secret sauce. When you upgrade a traditional customization within Sage 300, it generally means you have to modify what was customized. And this holds a lot of Sage 300 customers back on older versions of Sage 300 because they can't upgrade without redoing the customization that was built specific to that version. With Extender, because it looks like just another view within Sage 300, it upgrades automatically with the rest of Sage 300. So you don't have to redo any of the customizations. They automatically upgrade with the rest of your Sage 300. So you can maintain compatibility with the newer versions, and that will keep Darby happy because you'll be on the most current or no worse than N-1 versions of Sage 300. Now, when we combine Extender with notes, we call them extended notes. So on the right-hand side, you not only see standard text notes, but you've got information about this specific customer, their year-to-date sales, their net average sale. You might even have days outstanding, plus their documents, plus the fact that every time you change their credit limit, what's highlighted in yellow, this is what's been changing. And you can record these changes automatically. And that's what makes the notes dynamic, because we've added some business logic using Extender to make these notes more powerful and more relevant to a particular condition or situation by which you want to create these notes or have them displayed. So this creates a very powerful tool for you to customize the information that you're viewing, much like the dashboards Brian was showing within Intacct. This is almost like a mini dashboard within Sage 300 to highlight key metrics about your customers as you're actually entering orders for them. So all kinds of different ways we can use it for creating alerts in the system. When something happens, you want to alert someone, or you want to send an email, or you want to automatically create another transaction within Sage 300 based on an order being posted, let's say. All of these are possible as scheduled or manually invoked processes within Sage 300. And as we talked about, there is a workflow engine that's built into Extender. Now, we talked about workflow as part of Norming Resource Manager. And what you'll find with Sage 300 is some of these add-in products have got their own workflow engines. This is more of a generic workflow engine that would allow you to create acknowledgements or approvals around any process within Sage 300. And typically this is for people that are in Sage 300, so more of the finance accounting type workflows where people need to get approvals on the AP invoices before they get posted, or payments before they get posted, or create the EFT file, or updating a vendor master file, anything that happens within Sage 300, and you want a workflow approval that's documented and stored within the Sage 300 database, this is where the extender workflow capability would come in. And so you can see we flowchart out the workflow process. There's a console that allows you to see all of the workflow steps and who's next in the order of approval, so that there's a complete audit trail for every workflow process, and this is all stored within Sage 300. And here's the console, so that as an approver, I can see just those transactions or master file updates I need to approve, or depending on my access rights, I might see all of them. And then there's a history, so I can see who else has viewed and approved the transaction or the master file update. I can reassign the workflow to another user, and I can also reject or put it on hold. Now, if you do need remote access, there is a remote action service that allows you through a document to approve a transaction in the document, and then that goes back and sets up the approval in the approval workflow console in Sage 300. So in this case, you don't need to log into Sage 300. I can do the approval through a document process. Or you could use the Workflow Anywhere app and use a mobile app to participate in the extender workflow. And again, this would then commit that approval to the workflow console within Sage 300. Process Scheduler is a tool to automate the administrative processes within Sage 300. Things like your day-end process and inventory control within one or across multiple companies. It will run the day-end at a scheduled date and time. It will create those system batches, and then if you want, post those system batches automatically. So the couple of benefits here are that you're not putting a heavy load on the server during peak business hours, but using it overnight when there's less strain on your server, so it'll process and not interrupt day-to-day transaction processing. But it also allows you to automate the process. Nobody has to sit there and wait for day end to complete. And you can configure email notifications and logging of the process to make sure there's no errors. And if there are errors, you determine within the schedule, what's the next step? Do I stop the process, or I just continue to the next step and log the error and then send an email to notify someone to follow up later? It works with Report Runner. So as we mentioned, you could automate the scheduling for generation and distribution of your Crystal reports and your 300 GL financial reports. You can update Info Explorer, which is a data cube BI tool. And you can also automatically run scripts from Extender that are time-based to automatically send out notifications to customers for collection purposes or integrate with other external applications. We use Extender sometimes as a bridge to large applications running on Oracle, as an example, where we can take data from Oracle and automatically pull it into Sage 300 on a scheduled basis. So as you can see, Extender combined with some of the other tools like Process Scheduler allow us to automate different types of processes either within Sage 300 or creating bridges to external data systems as well. So this is what Process Scheduler looks like within Sage 300. There's a list of functions such as posting of ready to post batches or all batches, so it'll make the switch to a posted to ready to post status and then post. It can run your data integrity. It can also open and close fiscal calendar periods. It can do DB days dumps and loads, anything of an administrative nature within a company or across companies on a scheduled basis. And then Report Runner, we've talked a bit about this, so I won't belabor the point. But this gives you the ability to automatically run and distribute Crystal and FR financial statement reports. And as we talked about, you tailor the report menu for different users, determining what format of the data, what kind of data do they need included, group them logically by function or process as a report group, and then save those parameters so you don't have to go in and enter them every time. For those of you that run your age trial balance, you know that screen with all the different parameters is quite busy. And you go in there and select that every time you run the report. Well, wouldn't it be nice to just hit a button to print it, because the system knows how you want that report formatted and what data you want included. That's really the key benefit of Report Runner. And then, of course, when you integrate it with Process Scheduler, you can automate the entire process. So this is the custom menu where you decide, I want to run a scheduled report. I can send it via email as an attachment, or I can send it to a folder on the network, and it will be there waiting for the person when they go into their folder, and it will show them all of the different reports, both Crystal and FR. And by limiting the selection options, you'll see the AP vendor aging that we talked about. That snippet of the screen is showing you that the only thing I can enter is the range of vendors that I want to print the aging report for. So that's another way to use the tool. You still go in and make some selections, but all the other selections are hard-coded. So you're limiting what options people can run the reports by. And that's it. That covers off the main automation tools within Orchid Systems portfolio. Again, I want to thank you for your time and attention. We appreciate it very much. I would recommend, if you're interested in any of these solutions, to follow up with Effie or other contacts within Equation. But know that on the public pages of Orchid Systems website, you do have a plethora of videos, case studies, brochures, and other documentation that you can avail yourself of by product. So all of that information is available to you at no charge through the website on the public pages. Thanks very much.